Ay, I'm at the top of my game. I'm who they hate. This shit come with the fame. That's how I knew that I made it. I woke up looking this good. I'm in my prime. These niggas gotta get played. If these bitches ain't mad, I need to go harder. I can't let them think we the same.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Misogynoir in the World. Also, this is pre-recorded, but Happy New Year, y'all. We are in 2025 when you all are watching this. So we are literally coming from the past into the future, which is super exciting. So it's me, Dr. K, your hot girl professor. My pronouns are they, them, Beyonce. Yes, I said Beyonce. I know we on the fence right now about Beyonce, but it's more so the work ethic, right? It has nothing to do with the personal politics. Free Palestine, okay? Also, I research misogynoir, in particular, digital misogynoir, and I look at the ways in which Black women and non-binary femmes create harm reduction on social media websites such as X or Twitter, which may actually not be with us when this airs because everyone is kind of like migrating from Twitter to Bluesky. So we'll see, Shawty. So for those that don't know what misogynoir is, the definition of misogynoir is a unique discrimination that is anti-Black racism and misogyny that directly impacts Black women and femmes, agender folks, non-binary baddies, all of the above. And it is a term that was coined by Dr. Moya Bailey in 2008, who's a Black feminist scholar who looked at particularly how this showed up in U.S. digital and visual culture. So I'm really excited about the guests that we have today. They are one of my sibs. They have very unique work that they do, and I think that this conversation is going to be really, really great, especially for you all that are interested in reproductive justice, but also health communications as well. So I'm going to introduce Dr.Robyn Adams, whose pronouns are they, them. They are an educator and a reproductive justice organizer, and we're going to just jump into the questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so how does misogynoir uniquely impact the maternal health outcomes of LGBTQ plus Black birthing people, particularly in terms of access to affirming and equitable healthcare?
Well, that is such a loaded conversation that's filled with so much history. One of the things that I appreciated that you shared on your social media recently is just how far back this concept is rooted in, especially within American context of the Atlantic slave trade. And just truly thinking about the conceptualizations and how we think about Blackness, how we think about womanhood, what it means to be a woman, and subsequently what it means to exist in this society. Because the healthcare system, as we know it now, is rooted in the not only the labor of Black people, but violence against Black people and Black bodies, particularly Black birthing people. We're seeing that play out in real times now, like just the impacts of it. One of the ways in particular is just how we think about conversations around reproduction. They're really led by kind of we're going to put out there white supremacy and a white supremacist view. And when we talk about white supremacy, I think a lot of times people try to reduce it to an individual action. But when I'm saying white supremacy, I'm talking about a system, I'm talking about institutions, I'm talking about a social structure, particularly within the healthcare system, which is connected to government and policy, has found ways to continue violence against Black birthing people. And so that looks like some of the anti-trans legislation that we've seen being passed, the abortion bans that are being passed right now, who have been passed in Georgia and Texas, and that has subsequently have led to the deaths of people like Amber Thurman, as well as Jocelyn Barnaca, which was a more recent abortion ban related death that happened in Houston, Texas. And so it is all over the conversation of reproduction because we are seeing Black birthing people pass in real time due to some of the legislations that are happening, but also through their experiences with the healthcare system. And so we know Black birthing people are 3 to 5 times more likely to die during childbirth. We also know that Black birthing people are not given access to the reproductive health care that they deserve. Quality access to reproductive health care is determined by your social statuses, so race, sexuality, your financial stability. In our country, those who get the most privilege are those who are white, male, thin, able-bodied people. And so really it's all over, and it is the main driver of what we're seeing as it relates to Black maternal deaths. And I like to say, when we're talking about Black maternal deaths, we're talking about a labeling of all Black birthing people, not just those who see themselves as mothers.
Thank you for that. And thank you for the history as well. I think that's really important for us to continue to talk about this historical legacy of violence as it pertains to not just Black women, right? But all folks that embody the ability to be birthing people, and how dating all the way back to enslavement, Shawty. I say it all the time. Like, they have literally made it to where our bodies are just means of production and to produce the workforce for them. And that shows up a lot now in how we are treated when it comes to our maternal health. So the next question is, what role do systemic racism and transphobia play in the disparities faced by Black LGBTQ birthing people in maternal health? And how do these intersecting oppressions manifest during pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum care? And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your research, because I know you interviewed folks about this in particular.
Right. And so I love that you bring up the topic of transphobia. And I want to start right there because transphobia has a foundational linkage to anti-Blackness. And the reason why I say that is when we see transphobic, like anti-trans legislation come into part, it impacts everyone, even those who may not identify with being gender or sexually diverse, because gender affirming care is PCOS care. It is endometriosis care. And so when we start to talk about anti-trans legislation, we're talking about all of those things, because transphobic legislation is surrounded by looking at the most ideal person, which is someone who is a white male, sometimes white female, that has no health problems, completely able-bodied. And that's some of the things that I talk about in my work, why there is an importance for us to understand queerness when it comes to the conversation of understanding the current reproductive health disparities and also the future reproductive health disparities and where we should go with that conversation. So a lot of my work is thinking about reimagining reproduction, and it's heavily influenced by the works of Afrofuturism, Black feminisms, thinking about how can we imagine a world that's greater than what we're participating in, but also that this has been a practice that we've always done. So whether we think about maroon communities, which were formerly enslaved folks that would take communities outside of white supremacist systems, create their own agriculture, their own economic trade, their own sustainability. And my work looks at how do we listen to Black queer people's storytelling so we can reimagine how we can think about our safety, our health, our well-being outside of these racist systems. And a lot of that work for me is really tapping into creativity. And so one of the things that is interesting about white supremacy and racist systems is that it tends to matriculate its ideas in every facet of life. And so whether we're thinking about Black people not being able to wear their hair in braids and locks in the job, Black people wearing too much color and needing to be more refined and wear more grays and black, white hues, all the way down to you not being taken seriously. Because when you're looking for care, you don't meet that refined version, aka that white version of how you should look. And that is directly related to the conversation of transphobia, right? And these anti-trans legislations that we're seeing is because they want people to fit in a box, and people do not fit into a box. People come out in all different shades and hues. And according to racism, that is not possible. You have to stay stagnant. Whatever sexuality you were when you were 20 needs to be the same sexuality you have when you're 50. When I'm talking about sexuality, I'm not talking about being lesbian, gay, bisexual. I'm talking about your sexual needs, your health needs. And so we see that play out throughout the birthing process, especially with Black birthing people are most likely not to be heard. And the reason why that's important when we think about Black maternal death rates here in this country is that 90% of those deaths are preventable. Meaning, if people were just to be listened to, then they would have the access and care that they need. And when I talk to different Black birthing people, and specifically Black queer birthing people who are navigating the system, they are put through horrific acts, from having their water broken without their permission, to their partners being denied, to not having insurance to be able to have care. And insurance is such a privileged concept to have, because 40% of Black queer people live below the poverty line, which means 40% of Black queer people make less than $20,000 a year. And so we are not even accessing the healthcare system like we should. And then when we do, we have to face these barriers of discrimination that end up leading to death during the birthing process, not getting the care that we need during abortion related processes, which also has led to deaths, what we're seeing with the most recent deaths because of the abortion ban. And all of this is about controlling the body. And that concept of controlling the body has made pregnancy a disease, has made pregnancy a commodity. And that is directly related to capitalism. Capitalism is directly related to the Atlantic slave trade, especially when thinking about the ways that bodies are a commodity, the way that birthing is a commodity. And we're seeing even those conversations happen with the most recent election of people who have been affiliates with Trump saying, like Elon Musk today, that we need to be pushing people to have children, right? And so what does that mean? In a reproductive justice framework, we're not only discussing the decision not to have children, the decision to have children, but also to raise these children in the conditions that we see fit. And those are the things that are being fundamentally attacked. So when we're talking about racist systems having an impact on Black birthing people, I'm talking about within the healthcare system. I'm talking about not having access to quality water, quality air. I'm talking about not being able to afford groceries. I'm talking about not being able to navigate the educational system, the attacks on the Department of Education. I think we all want to see some type of reform, but we know that the reform that usually happens, it excludes Black people. And so that's why a lot of my work is surrounded by reimagining and it coming from our insights, our perspectives based off of our experiences, and showing the value that what we know about our lives, what we know about what we need, should take precedence over any lawmaker, and especially a system that is rooted in anti-Blackness.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think that a lot of people are going to benefit from you really breaking down how transphobia shows up and like what that actually is and looks like, because I think a lot of times when people think of transphobia, they think about it being a macro aggression, like in your face, and they don't really think about the very, very subtle and quiet parts of our society that are constantly pushing trans misogynoir on a day-to-day basis in our media, in the way that we even decide to move forward with family planning.
Right. And I just
So
want
the
to
last
I just want to address something about the transphobia, because more recently, what we have seen since the election results is now in all Texas hospitals, doctors have been told and health clinics have been told, when you walk into the office, you have to answer two questions. Are you a U.S. citizen, and what is your gender? And so these play out in very real ways. Like you said, it's not on a micro level. These are now turning into practices. While they're not laws, that's how they start. All laws start as practices. They start as being pushed in these health centers, these healthcare systems, feeling forced to do so because they don't want to lose funding because of corporate lobbying. And so we're seeing the impacts of transphobia happening right now in very real ways. And it's also an interesting conversation how they're connecting transphobia to xenophobia when asking that question alongside, are you a U.S. citizen? Because they understand that people outside of a Western context have historically had such a vast view and more accepting view of understanding gender than we have had here.
Yeah, very, very true. And then the last question I want to ask is more so, a lot of times I ask questions that incite thoughts around solutions. So the final question is, in what ways can healthcare systems be restructured to address the specific needs of LGBTQ Black birthing people? And how can providers be educated to reduce the impact of misogynoir and improve health outcomes for this community?
So I'm going to say an unpopular opinion. I don't think healthcare systems can be restructured. I think healthcare systems can be more accepting. I think if we were to lean onto history, we have not seen that happen over time, particularly for Black birthing people. And I'm thinking about granny midwives and how they served as the first responders of care and birthing all types of people, including white babies, and how the healthcare system has been solely responsible from separating Black people from the practices of medicine and community healthcare. I think what we can do at this point is, as a community, continue to be strategic in how we make ourselves present in the healthcare system. And so I think more than ever, I think the conversation is, how do we reorganize? How do we be strategic as a community when working alongside the healthcare system? And I think that community-based doulas, community midwives, community health educators are going to be very critical, and especially in some of these states where there is not a lot of kind of policing around community-based doulas and midwives. So like here in Texas, being a community-based doula is an unregulated practice. And when we say unregulated practice, I'm talking about in terms of the government not being involved. And so I like to make an example of the aunt that you had that can always do hair. Just because she don't have a cosmetology license don't mean she can't slay your hair down. She's still able to develop her own practices of care, her own systems to make sure that everybody feels good when they walk out of her chair. And this is what community-based doulas are doing, is that we are creating our own practices. We are creating our own standards, and we're being able to implement in our communities. And so what that looks like is doulas working with not even just people who are birthing people, but assisting them through navigating the healthcare system. I think we don't not only need birthing plans, but we just need general health plans of how can we teach other people in our communities to advocate for themselves when they go to the doctor's office. I think making our spirituality well known within the healthcare system. Most hospitals have a chaplain. So spirituality is already incorporated within the healthcare system, but it's from a white supremacist view. Not saying all chaplains are white supremacists, but Catholicism has a strong white supremacist background. And I say the value of spirituality because spirituality allows conversations of desires. And it takes away the sterile conversation of birthing and pregnancy. And it changes into something that is, it moves beyond that conversation to pleasure, to what do you really want? How do you want things to be for yourself? And when we get out of I want this medicine, I want my baby to come at 6 p.m. I want it to be on the 3rd floor too. I want to feel safe. I want to feel happy. I want to feel listened to. I want to feel heard to. How can we incorporate those practices and bring that with us when we come into the healthcare system? And because of some of the anti-DEI legislations that are passing, we have to know that within these medical schools, within these higher education systems, K through 12, a lot of these conversations that we need in order for our survival are going to disappear. And that is intentional. And so I think that it's keeping ourselves present in our communities. It's advocating for ourselves. It's figuring out what are our new roles when reimagining the future of reproduction. I'm someone who doesn't have children, but I felt really inspired to become a community-based doula because I know that I just can't be an educator in the future of what our society looks like. I have to have all the tools. And when I think about my family members, my great-grandmother was at the church, was also the cafeteria lady, was also the person in the neighborhood, right? We had more than one job. And so I think it's about how we think about restructuring our communities. We think about restructuring our lives, so we can kind of stop relying on the conversation and kind of the slow change that the healthcare system can have.
Yeah, and I'm happy you talk a lot about like the roles that we take in the community. So, I'm an abortion doula. I've been an abortion doula. Has it been 3 years now? And I've been really grateful for the work that I get to do. And I'm more so interested in the practical support we provide. So, childcare, lodging, food, care packages, resources, just somebody to text because
Mm-hmm.
you're just stressed out about it, right? Just having that person. I always say that like abortion doulas are like a shield for birthing people. They are a liaison between the birthing person and the healthcare system. So I think that it is really important for us to really think about community when it comes to healthcare, because I also don't believe that healthcare systems can be restructured. I'm really on my abolitionist mindset when it even comes to the healthcare system, as someone who has experienced child loss, infertility, all of those things. I know that the healthcare system cannot do for me what my community has done for me. So I'm really happy that you brought up that community piece. So
Period.
that is the end of our conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. And of course, as always, if you all have any questions, you can drop them in the comments below. Yeah, I'll see y'all next time.
A horse is pretty like a portrait, mouth full of diamonds and porcelain.